Okay, so a very good evening to one and all present over here. First of all, I would like to wish each and every one of you a very happy and a safe Diwali. Okay, so moving on, we are here for the session on Android development or Hello Android by our own by our own senior Krishna Bose. Okay, so Krishna Bosda is an alumnus of our college. He graduated from a college in computer science and engineering from 2000 in 2020 means current year, and also he's currently an SDE of Tagmango. His expertise in Android development is vast, and I'm sure this will be a highly informative session for each and every one of you. Okay, so wishing each and every one of you a happy learning. Over to you, and also this meeting is being recorded from now on, and we are going live. Okay, we are live in FB. Okay, over to you, Krishnada.
Yeah. Hi everyone. How's everyone doing?
Live in FB. Okay, yeah,
Not
we
yet.
over to you,
Yes.
Krishnada.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So yeah. Then I think I need to start with a hiccup that if I share the screen now, then I
Hi
won't be able to
everyone,
see the
how's
messages,
everyone
right?
doing?
So
Live in FB.
is there any other way to do
Okay,
it?
yeah, we
Not
are
yet.
over to you,
Yes.
Krishnada.
Okay.
We can say
Okay.
over the
Cool.
questions.
So yeah. Yeah. Then if somebody posts the questions in messages, just please try to do that. Try to just read them out loud. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll read them out. Okay, and if someone posts in Facebook as well, I'll be reading out to you. Okay,
Cool. Cool.
yeah.
Thanks. Thanks. Okay. Okay then. So hi everyone and wishing everyone a belated happy Diwali. So I'll just start, and before I start, I should give a little bit a small introduction about myself. So I'm Krishna Bose, and I am from Kalyani Government Engineering College. I guess most of you are. So I passed out this year in 2020, and initially I joined Infosys, but then I switched to start. Hi everyone, and wishing everyone a belated happy Diwali. So I'll just start. Okay, there is some echo going on. Before I start, I should give a little bit a small introduction about myself. So I joined Tagmango recently. So this is a startup. We are building a new social media platform for influencers where they can monetize their products. So that's about me. And I have, even though I'm just a fresher in industry, but I have some experience with Android development, and I had the opportunity to get my hands dirty with different frameworks like native Android, Ionic, and React. And also, meanwhile, I started Flutter for a bit, and also web development and sorts and sorts. So I think this puts me in a position to share a little bit about Android development or development in general with other people who are enthusiastic and are eager to start. So that's it. And also, like from the responses I received, and I think that some people are also interested in the fact that I participated in Smart India Hackathon and also won it. Um, so that's something I think I should cover also about the augmented reality part. Okay, so we'll get to that later, and let's just jump into it. And also one thing, I speak a little fast sometimes. So if it is going like too fast, then somebody please like just unmute themselves and ask me to go slow. Okay, this is a genuine request. Okay, so okay, I think this is all covered. So I think today we should like mainly focus on the app development part. So and also from the feedback, I realized that many people already have their hands on their experience with some Android development framework. So I think I should just ask everyone like, what according to you is app development? Anyone, please? I think since we have so many less participants in the Google Meet, we can just like have this interactive in some way or the other, right? So if somebody is like wanting to tell something, please go on. Okay, so this is going like those online classes. Nobody speaks. Fine. So app development is the part of a sub part of development where we build apps. So what are apps? Apps is technically short form of application, but in the modern lingo and in 2020, apps refer to everything that runs on mobile devices, right? So what are the primary mobile devices we have right now? Android devices, sorry, and iOS devices. So apps, there are applications that can be installed and downloaded and run on Android or any other mobile platform is app development, right? So what makes them different from web pages? So web pages or web apps, what they say, web apps generally run on some browser, maybe Chrome or Safari or whatever. But for app, they have this ability where they can interact with the hardware natively. So what do I mean natively? That they can get access to many more features of the platform. They can harness the power of the GPU or any hardware that is available, like accelerometer or something, and it also gives you better performance and like accessibility and these sort of stuffs more than the web pages. So that's app, right? So that is what like differentiates app development from general software development as a whole. Because if you have a website or web page, you can just run it on any platform, may it be iOS, may it be Android, may it be your Windows machine or Linux. So all you need is Chrome or some browser and you are ready to go. But apart like even after those sort of facilities, why should somebody opt for app development which is strictly bound with a single platform? The answer is this: because you can get so lot more benefits with app, the native functionalities of app, which you probably wouldn't get in a web app. Okay, so I think this is also the bullet points, like what are the like native apps, why should acha. Now I think before since we are clear that what are apps or primarily Android apps, I think we should now discuss about what the types of apps that are available. Okay, so if you have googled even once about making apps or like something, or maybe heard of your friends talking about making apps, then you might have heard about these terms, that there are native apps, there are hybrid apps, there are cross-platform apps, and so on and on and on. So the definitions are not quite like hard bound and they're not written in dictionary, but there is some general meaning to all of these which might vary over the years, but also there is some sort of stability in the meaning. So I would just like to go over the broad type of Android apps or mobile apps in general which are available and which you can build by yourself if you want. So the first thing or the most basic one is native apps, and by basic I mean the rudimentary or the primary mode of making apps, not just basic because of features. So native apps are the apps that come pre-installed in your phone, or that is like these are the apps that are built for support by your machine natively. Like you don't need any third-party plugins, or you don't need anything else to support this. Your your phone's operating system was designed to run and handle these sort of apps. So these are called native apps, right? Um, so what are the natives app? Like if you go to your phone and see most of the things like settings and everything, whatever comes pre-installed. So most of these apps are native. So and also like in your system, like if you're using Windows, then there are certain apps like certain applications that come pre-installed with your operating system, or those things that are built in a certain language, which is in which you're also the operating system is written. So those sort of apps are native apps. Okay, so for Android, the apps which are built with Android Studio and Java and Kotlin, these are apps which we call as native apps, because Android was primarily built to run apps which were built in Java. So, what are the pros for native apps? You might ask. So, of course, the first thing is fast and robust performance, because you see, this is how the whole operating system is built. So the whole thing is already bootstrap and running, and if you just add a simple script or maybe a small apk, it doesn't add really much to the already processing stuff. So this gives you the native performance. Like if you are coming from a competitive background, like competitive programming background, you might already know that some people think that C and C++ are better than Java and other languages because they give you faster execution time. So why is that? Because the OS you are running on, the OS may be Windows or Linux or whatever, they actually run C and C++ below the hood. So what happens is that when you they have so like if you are running a new script, so they have the thinnest layer of interface between the operating system and your code. So whatever happens, the execution is quite fast. So same here with like Android. So if you run the native apps, so they have the thinnest interface layer between the operating system and your app interface. So you don't have much rubbish to take care of. So it's only the pure code, and so the performance is very fast. And also not just performance in terms of maybe the app size or maybe the resources consumed or everything. So you have this thing where this makes sense, and this is also a very robust and portable. And the second pro is, of course, that access to device, access to the memory, access to most of the integrated features of OS and also the hardwares. Because in 2020, there are a lot of hardwares that are available in your smartphone, may it be GPS, may it be magnetometer, and sort of others like accelerometer, and not to mention the camera, because that is one of the primary things. So this is the even though some other frameworks are there who gives you limited accessibility to these, but native apps give you full control over these, and you can use them in any way you want, given that there is an API available. And in most of the times, there is some API available. And third is optimized APK. So like since is there is not much translating to do between the app and the operating system, the APK of course becomes quite reduced in size, because for the bootstrapping
Baba,
purpose and for transpilation or maybe like execution, you don't have to
Baba.
depend on some other compilers or executors. It is handled by your operating system itself. Okay. And the biggest con of native apps is that it's single platform. So if you make an app for Android Studio, for Android in Android Studio with Java or Kotlin, so you have to like be aware of that. You cannot take this code and iOS and just like want it to run. So that is not possible. So if you write an app for Android, you have to like run it on Android. And also sometimes what happens is that like with the newer upgrades and newer APIs that come, so if you maybe build an app for some like some higher versions and with some newer APIs, it might not be supported in the older ones. So these sort of things happen. And the other cons is that since it gives you a hell lot of what to say accessibility and features and also control over the whole aspect of the operating system and the device, so sometimes some code has to be written from ground up. So you have to do a lot of boilerplate coding and also these sort of things. And you might feel like that even to write a single page of Hello World application, it takes so much time and also like code. So that is one con for somebody, but also if you are used to it, then it doesn't really matter. But also for beginners, I have seen that this is a kind of concern, because maybe in other hybrid or other cross-platform frameworks where you just have to write 2 to 3 lines of code practically to get your app running. So that is the pros and cons in terms of native apps. And let's see what are the other types of apps we have. So the other most popular thing in market right now in 2020 would be React Native. So what is React Native? This belongs to the category of cross-platform apps. Okay. So I mentioned it earlier that we have primarily three types of apps. One is native apps, one is cross-platform apps, and another is hybrid. So this one comes under the second type, the cross-platform. So what do we mean by cross-platform apps? So that is one question. So by cross-platform, we mean that the code or the logic or the design that you write can be taken and ported to different operating systems without much changes. So let's say you are using React Native and you build some logic for e-commerce app. So it has the login pages and also maybe the display, the purchase, and this sort of this blah blah blah. And all this logic is written in a specific language. For React Native, it is JavaScript or TypeScript. So after that, suddenly, when you are scaling up, you find out that you have a lot of users who are using iPhone. So like naturally, you want to make the same thing for iPhone users as well. So now what you can do is you can just take this code, grab them, and just put it in some other bucket, or just port it to iOS easily. You don't even have to copy paste and make a new project. It is handled by React Native by itself. So all you need is this some Mac OS machine and just Xcode, and you just hit the run button and it just starts running. So it's as simple as that. So in essence, the cross-platform apps is somewhat similar to native apps, but the fun part is that in this time, like this time, you can both run it on Android and iOS, and also sometimes in Windows phones. I don't know if Windows phones exist anymore, but theoretically you can. Anyway, so about if I tell a little bit about React Native, so it's built by Facebook, right? So React Native is something that Facebook uses. So I think that gives it a lot of credibility because if you have used Facebook or Messenger or Instagram, most of Instagram is built with React Native itself. So you can see that it is quite performant, and also the feel is not that like diverge from the native feel. So also the look and feel is almost same for Android and iOS. That is one thing. And apart from that, one more thing about the React Native in particular is that suppose you have some parts written in React Native and there are few things that require OS specific features which might not be available in iOS but only in Android and vice versa. So you can just easily dive into your native code and build on top of that. So that being said, you can have Facebook, the app, where half of this is written in React Native and the half of it is written in your native language, made by iOS or Android. So even few years back, I know like this is a real fact that Facebook, when they started porting from native to React Native, so initially they only started out with Marketplace. So this feature in the Facebook app where they have this Marketplace, only that portion was built in React Native. Everything else was still running Android native, and also in iOS it was running iOS native. But recently, like in 2020, right now, the almost 90% of the app is written in React Native, and only in few places they still have native code. Apart from that, it's already switched. So that is one advantage that you can like just reuse the code for different platforms when there are these generic types, and like if you need the specific code, then you can just shift right back into it. So no issues with that. So that is one thing. Now, I don't know if you are going to have this question or not, but you should actually ask this question that if iOS and Android are different operating systems built in different ways, and also um, native apps are highly integrated or incorporate like connected with the OS. So how can React Native be both native app and also run on both the devices? So this is a question I myself had in the beginning. So like you can either be a hybrid app or something, and you can just like use some sort of running environment like a browser or tab, and you can just run on top of it. So that might be one option, but that won't be a native app, right? So if the app has to be native, and also the app has to run in multiple operating systems, then this becomes a kind of ambiguous or like contradicting. So in case of React Native, they have found a very elegant solution for this. So what they does is, I'll just dive a little bit into technical details. So let's say you have an Android app. So every app has different pages, right? So in most of the pages, the very common widget is a button, right? So let's say like even if like no matter if you're in iOS device or Android or maybe web browser, so there is one thing called button which is available everywhere. So what React Native does is it takes a abstract idea of button and like use it as a like superclass and makes the operating system components inherit from it. So I know this sounds a little bit complicated, but let me say. So let's say we know it for a fact that both Android and iOS has these widgets called buttons. So they behave in a very similar way, if not same. So you have this like property that if the button is pressed, then this is a function that you need to run. Okay. So this is similar for both Android and iOS. So what React Native does is it has its own abstract widget called button, and you pass it a parameter called like what happens, like you pass it the logic that when this abstract thing is pressed, then you have to execute these commands. So what React Native does is whenever you are in a platform, it will just map from your abstract component to its native component. So when you are in Android, it will just take your button thing and just like for Android, it will use a button component. And like if you're using some simple text, it will just use a text component and this sort of things. And for iOS, it will just use the UI views and UI text component and UI input, whatever is there. So what happens is like the UI that you see is not some third party. It is actually whatever the OS natively provides you. So even though you are writing the code once, but when you are building it, React Native does this magic behind the scenes, and it will take your JavaScript or XML code, and it will actually convert it, like it will manually convert it into native code. So that is why even though you write the code once in maybe a language which is not supported by any of the platforms, and it magically makes them into almost native apps for all the platforms. So that is the fun and magic of React Native, and it also has many pros and cons. But I think that you can explore later on if you are interested enough. So moving on, we have Flutter. So Flutter is another new addition to the bundle of what to say these cross-platform apps, and this was made by Google and it was launched in 2016. The stable version came out recently. So Flutter is an experiment by Google, I would say. So Google also built Android. So why would it build Flutter? Somebody might ask. So Android was the Android Studio, or this whole thing was made in a way because, like you see, Google acquired Android, and when it came out as a project, like in maybe in 2014 or something, so Android was an operating system that was being built for small devices like washing machine or radio things, these sort of things, microwave ovens. So they were envisioning a future where this sort of small devices of different form factors will have a lightweight operating system, which will give you a more interactive experience. But then Google thought, okay, forget about all those washing machines. Let's just put them into phones and see what happens. So, and that is how we got Android phones, right? So the problem with Android was that since you had to have backward compatibility and all those sort of things, and there is this start, and then you can incrementally build on top of that, but the base remains the same, right? So what happened with Android over the years is that our usage pattern changed, the requirement changed, the amount of resources available in the phones, the configuration of hardware, everything changed. But what did not change is the core idea behind Android, right? So Now what happened? So like in 2020, this is the problem that is faced, that Android deep inside is not very optimized for smartphone users. So that is one thing. Even though the newer operating systems have done a lot of things to optimize, but like even though, since this is not built for smartphones initially, so Google had this plan that they would come up with a new futuristic operating system called Fuchsia, and for that they created Flutter. And even though that operating system never launched, the Flutter came into being. And another magic they put into Flutter is that since this is a whole ecosystem of its own, so it can both run on Android and iOS. So that is one thing that Flutter did. So this is the short slash long history of Flutter and Android and Fuchsia and whatever you can call it. So one thing about Flutter that I would like to mention is that it uses Dart. So it is a different programming language. I don't know if many people have heard about it or not, but just close your eyes and imagine that if Python, Java, C, this sort, and JavaScript, they were all put together and put in a mixie and mixed. So the result would look something like similar to Dart. So, so that is one thing. And apart from that, the now since I have explained how React Native makes native apps with single code base, so about Flutter, the technology is a little bit different. So what happens is Flutter has its own transpiler. So Flutter doesn't use the native libraries. What it does is it just directly directly takes its code and like digests it into machine code. So Flutter, like if you all you need to have is just the proper
বন্ধ করে দাও।
runtime for a certain OS, so it will take care of the rest. I know it is a little bit confusing, but you generally don't need to know it as well. Okay, I got a question. I think someone's asking a question. What's the difference between hybrid and cross-platform? Okay, so yeah, this is the right time to answer. So the next thing is hybrid apps. Okay, okay, just in time. So now I have hybrid apps. Okay, so before I answer the question, I would like to give a small introduction about hybrid apps. So what are hybrid apps? Hybrid apps are also apps that can be like executed in different platforms, like maybe iOS or Android, maybe sometimes also in web. It doesn't matter. So it totally depends on the framework, whichever platform they want to support. So what hybrid apps does is it mainly uses the capacity and the runtime of some browser. So in essence, hybrid apps are just web pages disguised to look as Android apps. Get my point? Okay, I have no feedback channel anyway. So what about hybrid apps is that they are essentially web apps. So what happens in case of hybrid apps is that like it looks like an Android app. It is also present in your launcher. You can just open it just like any other Android app. But inside, when you click it, it fires up a Chrome browser tab. So this tab doesn't have the decorator, so you cannot understand that this is a browser tab, but it is actually a browser tab. And what it does is it has this web page things like the HTML things, CSS, and the JS things. So it just loads up automatically in the
No,
page.
no, no, no,
So you are not
these
shown
off.
the address bar or anything.
Cameras off.
So it feels like empty blank
Cameras
page
off.
and it just renders the web page into it. So hybrid apps are essentially web apps or websites, if you want to call it, and it is just wrapped inside a small app-like thing. So this is hybrid. Okay. So hybrid is not actually what to say native apps or cross-platform. Hybrids are of course cross-platform, but then nothing close to a native app. So hybrid apps have this limitation that it will only allow you to have access over stuff that the underlying browser can access to. So like if your browser can have access to your storage, then your hybrid apps might have the access, but otherwise it is difficult. So you generally don't get all the benefits of native or cross-platform apps with hybrid apps. This is one thing. So did that answer your
Mutki.
question even slightly?
Nothing more to
How can I
okay.
know? Anyone, please? Is anybody listening?
Yes, yes, we are.
Okay. So whoever asked this question, so did it answer your query? This is becoming confusing for me.
Yes, yes, he just said yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, then fine. Then let's moving on to the next section.
আমি যাবো না নিজে নাও
Okay, just one more thing. Am I going fast?
ভাইকে বলো
Anyone?
ব্যস্ত আছি দেখতে পাচ্ছ না
No? Yes. Okay, cool.
It's perfect.
Okay, cool. Cool enough. Okay, so I think these are the things you need to know before diving into Android application building, because like what are the types of Android apps. So primarily there are three. One is native, one is cross-platform, and another is hybrid. So everyone has their own pros and cons. I think we can just like go quickly over those. So um, for cross-platform apps, what are the pros is that you get single code bases. So you don't have to write multiple times. It is something that Java decided to do. Like if you have studied Java in your school, then you might have heard about this thing. Java had this slogan called "Write once, run anywhere." So that is the thing cross-platform is trying to do, is that like write once and run in different platforms. And generally, what happens with React and this cross-platform is that write once, debug everywhere. So like you just write one code and in different platforms it will give you different errors. Anyway, but like that is one thing. Okay, for native, this is more of a con that if you have a code base, then you have to write from scratch for everyone. So I don't think there is a single thing you can take from Android and copy it over to your Xcode or iOS project. Apart from the images and the name of your app, everything has to be written from scratch. And for hybrid, I think this is like what to say. This is a very big benefit because um, since every operating system has some sort of browser, so all you need to do is you need to just build a web page that works on browsers. So that's all, right? And you just need to configure it so that it looks good on portrait mode screens and stuff, nothing else. So this is for code bases. And for use and feel, of course, native will give you the best look and feel, or the most native look and feel in terms of like other applications you see, because that is the meaning of native, right? Uh, and also performance wise, I think native is going to give you the best performance because like I described, so they are the closest to the core of your system. And cross platform also gives you quite similar to native look and feel in most cases. So it also actually depends on your coding. So if you code it in the right way, React Native will give you the exact replication of how a native app should look. But since Flutter has a different philosophy, so Flutter creates their own widgets. It might look a little bit different from the native buttons and stuff, but more or less it is good. And also since they're somehow closer to the core, if not as close as native, so the performance is still okay. And now comes to the hybrid things. So what about the hybrid apps is that they're simply HTML stuff. So their widgets and all the things will look like how a browser thing would look like. So it all depends on the CSS. If you use the right CSS, then you can get the right design. But otherwise, if you make some mistake, then this can just blow up, right? And also maybe there are some sort of CSS properties that might not be available in all the browsers. all the other big players of browsers. So like in that case, I think hybrid apps might falter. So in terms of look and feel, hybrid apps will not have that much similarity to native applications uh, compared to the other two contenders. And about performance, so this is where also hybrid apps falter, because since they're actually browser, so when you run your app, you have to run two things internally. One is the browser, and another is the this your app's logic. So now your app has to process two things at once. So sometimes you can find that there is a little bit of jitter or lag in your hybrid apps. But the other thing is that what languages to use to build. So here for native, you have the option of Java or Kotlin. They're kind of similar, but um, like they are the languages which support and like which are supported in Android by default. And for iOS, we have Swift. Recently, Swift 5 came out, so that is one thing you use in iOS. For cross-platform, in React Native, you can use JavaScript or TypeScript. So JavaScript is for people who likes Python, where the variables doesn't have type, and for people who came from Java or C++ background, I think they will more appreciate TypeScript, which like puts a little bit more decency and discipline into your code. But apart from that, everything is written in JavaScript, and we all know JavaScript, right? It is the hipster language of 2020. Everything is written in JavaScript. Even uh, the new SpaceX missions, those things use JavaScript to like make their softwares, if I'm not wrong. I don't know. I take memes very seriously at times. Anyway, and for Flutter, we use Dart. So, like I said, Dart is an extremely alien language to many people. Even though Dart came out quite long ago, I think Dart came out about 8 years ago, but still, don't many people don't know about it. Anyway, so these are the pros and cons. So now you might ask that what is the best thing to learn? The answer is there isn't any best thing to learn, because this is real world and everyone will have their own pros and cons. um, I think it more depends on your use case, that what is your use case and what is the thing that you are trying to build. So depending on that, you might figure out that which is the best kind of technology for you to use. So let's say if you want a lot of native features, like maybe you want to access the hardwares and you want something that is very performative, like performant and efficient and this and that. So then I think you have to switch to native coding, because it will give you the full freedom. But then also you have to hire a team of developers, one for Android, one for iOS. And also after that, maybe you have to have separate code bases. So if you come up with a new feature, then you have to separately build for both Android and iOS and this and that. So these sort of things. And also it takes a lot of time to develop in native. But on the other hand, it will give you very efficient applications. So if you think that, okay, fine, maybe I'm not ready for that. Maybe I need something a little bit low key, a little bit faster development time. So then you can switch to cross-platform alternatives, where you don't need a different set of developers for two different platforms. You can use single one who can like handle both the cases, and it will also give you somewhat access to your hardware features. And it is also like, if not performant as the native, but quite performant. You really don't need to uh, you don't need to think much about the performance in this case as well. But still, one thing you need to figure out is that you need both the environments, and maybe sometimes different sort of errors will come, so you need to handle those. and And one pro about using cross platform is that, let's say you have an application ready, so it is already deployed in both iOS and Android, and certainly you just want to have a new addition, a new feature, maybe like a new thing. So right now you don't have to write this thing for both your platforms. You can just write it once and just test it on 2 devices, and boom, you're ready for deployment. So in that way, it reduces your development time and cost and energy a lot compared to native. So this is for cross-platform. Then you would ask, like, when can I use hybrid? So hybrid is simple. If you have very simple requirements, maybe you just need to show some uh, display content, maybe just what to say, some logic, this pages, that pages, and simple things. Let's take example e-commerce. So e-commerce doesn't require much stuff. So all you need to do is you need a search thing where you can search for products. You can just click on a product and you can display. So there are images and text. This is the thing. And one thing is payment. And maybe then you need to just track um, that your order is there. So there are simple things. In these cases, you can use hybrid. Okay. So one pro about using hybrid is that if you write it properly, then you can have single code base for both, not only Android and iOS, but you can use the same thing also for your web page. So for Ionic particularly, it uses Angular inside, so or React. So if you write the code properly, you can just take the same code and you can deploy it as a website. So not only it works on your phones, but it will also work on the browser. So that is one thing. And okay, so I think enough pros and cons. So let's see. So these are the apps that are made with Java and Kotlin. I
Krishna,
think, yeah,
Ayush Singh has a question.
okay.
Yeah, he's asking, can he make a calculator using HTML, CSS, and JS and convert into a native app? Is it
Yeah.
possible?
So yeah, the first part is possible. You can make an app with HTML, CSS, and JS, but that won't be a native app. I mean, it will look like a native app. That is not an issue, but it won't be called a native app technically. It will be a hybrid app, right? So I think I think maybe we should take a little pause here, and I'll just give you a real walkthrough about. I have made a few apps using most of the technologies, so I think I can give you a live demo about how native apps will look and how other apps will look. So, so this is my phone. If you can see the screen. So this is a simple app that I made in my first year / second year. So this is a Macout, the syllabus of Macout, and it just shows you subject wise. If you just play like tap on one, it will show you all the modules. So very simple stuff. This was made with Java, so I didn't know much about other things stuff back then. So like this, nothing else. And then you have this change semester subjects is and stuff. So you see, this can be accessed here from your launcher, right? So this is what a typical native app looks like. So you have this launcher icon, you press on it, and the magic happens. Okay. So when somebody is talking about app, basically this is the image they have in mind. Okay. And now you might ask that, okay, about what to do with my HTML skills. Can I make something like that? And the answer is yes. So if you are making a hybrid app, it will still function or look like the same. So I have this app. I have an e-commerce app that I built with Ionic just 6 months back for a client when I was doing freelancing. So this is both of the apps, and they are both made in Ionic. And along with the Ionic, I like Ionic and Angular. So they're a small startup based in North Bengal, and they have this like business similar to a fusion of Zomato and other grocery grocers. So they deliver everything locally. So you see, this is the home page, and I don't think if you have this installed in your phone from Play Store, you would be able to tell any difference that okay, this might not be native, because there might be a performance issue with some devices. I agree, but apart from that, there is no way to tell if this is a hybrid app or a cross-platform or a native app, right? So. Uh, this has now about the capabilities. So you can see that I can search stuff here, right? So that is a very basic requirement, I think. So I think we got it covered. And also I have integrated payment gateways. So that is one thing that works natively. And also we have this tracking of orders and these sort of things. So I think you can get a fair idea that what are the things you can do with hybrid apps, even though it is running. So one more thing, can you like seeing this screen, can you guess that this is actually a Chrome tab? I don't think so, because there is no address bar or anything. So this just looks and feels like a native app, you see. So there is nothing that can give you the like it can trigger the fact that yeah, this is actually a browser tab. It totally looks and feels like a native app. So that is the magic. But this is purely written with HTML and TypeScript or JavaScript, anyone you can use, and CSS. So I think that answers your question very well. That can you use an app? Yep. But will it be a native app? No. So
Okay.
cool.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that is one thing. And also like maybe you can ask that what are the limitations of the hybrid app then. So I don't see much limitations, but you see, so this is the admin part of the same app, and there are so many native features already integrated into it. So one of them is this create broadcast notification. So if you just create a like notification, it will send a push notification to all your customers. So as most of you know, this is a native feature. So like you will get the notification somewhere here, right? So yeah, so this one. So like it will just work like a native app. So that is one thing. And also it has this sort of things like where you can pick images and stuff from the gallery, right to file and sort of things, access camera. So it will give you some accessibility, that is for sure. But if you want fine grain control over those things, then there might be a problem, right? So that is the limitation with um, hybrid apps. But with other native or cross-platform versions, it might not be that problem. Okay, so this was a small demo of a hybrid app. I'll just like to show you a single another app that I built, uh, which actually I am building for TagMango. It is their platform. So okay, and this one is built with um, React Native. So this is street like alpha, but I don't think if you see this one, there is nothing that can flag that this is not a native app, right? So everything about it just looks and feels like native. So all the components and everything is just as clean and performant as native. So like there is nothing that can tell you that yeah, this is not a native app. So this is the beauty of React Native, or even if you use Flutter, that this is the same app. The code I write here, I can just run it on iOS and Android, and I don't need to make maybe any changes at all. So that is one thing. And this gives you more or less everything you can do with your native app: access the hardware, camera, and file, and everything. And this is also quite performant because this is not a browser thing. This is actually native. So that's it. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so these are the apps that like maybe you know about this. So these are built with Java and Kotlin, so they're native. So that is one thing. But I think we are not quite interested about the native apps. We are more interested about the apps, hybrid ones, because they're the imposters that are hidden among us. Okay. So you see the Flutter apps you can find on Play Store or Google Ads. I don't know if you have used this one or Alibaba or Square. I'm not sure if you can relate to any one of them. Maybe this one, Dream 11, right? So this everything just looks and feels like a normal app. And for React Native, we have a few big players. So you have this PowerPoint thing, you have Zomato, you have PhonePe. I think most of you use this one, and also Flipkart. And also, if I'm not wrong, the other ones like Microsoft Office Lens, that is also written in React Native. So, so from that, from there, you can just understand that how powerful React Native or Flutter apps can be, because right. Okay, cool. Okay. So another thing is that like maybe Google Pay was also being written with Flutter maybe a few days back, but I think then they decided to switch back because it was quite buggy. And to compensate for all the bugs, they have just added those tickets, and people can go to Goa from their home. Anyway, so now I think once again you will ask the question that which framework to choose. So it is Native or Flutter. Now, even though I have given the theoretical pros and cons about both the languages, so there are some personal opinions you might want. So I have used native app, like I have used Android Studio and Java for about 3 years now, and I'm using React for about 3 months now. But like I think I have substantial knowledge to make a informed decision, or at least opinion. So most of you people know basic Java or C++, and that also only due to the fact that your school or college made you write some Hello World program or some calculator or this sort of thing. So it was quite simple. It was a single class or single function. You just took some input and processed it, and boom, you're done. So, and apart from that, if you want to write a real software with Java, it is quite tough. I mean, like there would be some lot of OOP patterns, object-oriented things, and also this sort of things, and class inheritance interface. The many things are there to consider, and it might be quite intimidating for starters, right? So that might also, like, even though you are like quite energetic about creating the app, these things can slow you down, because when you open Android Studio tomorrow and just look at the first Java class, you will see that the first line is says class my activity extends activity. So that is the first warning there, that what is extends, because you might not know that this is a inheritance thing. So everywhere, like these things are just spreaded like bugs everywhere in your Android or maybe iOS code, that like you need to know the OOP and multi-threaded, and if not multi-threaded, at least you have to know about event-driven design very properly. So that might be a what to say. This might be a negative thing for like beginners, because they might think that there is a huge learning curve associated with making native apps. So that is where Flutter or React Native comes into play. I cannot say for Flutter, but at least for React Native, since the most of the stuff is done with JavaScript, so it is easy, right? Because JavaScript is easy. Also, because it is written with XML tags, so it is somewhat similar to HTML, and many people already know about HTML and web development, so the switch is not that hard for them. And also, if you don't know, the syntax is quite simple, so it really doesn't take much of the energy or effort to just dive into Flutter or React Native. So that is one thing. So which framework to choose, is the answer totally depends on you. So if you think that, yeah, I already have some idea about Java and stuff, so I can handle, you can of course dive into native apps, because like in the long run, the knowledge of native apps will really help you. But if you think like, yeah, I need to boost up my confidence, so I need to make some apps first, so you can start with React Native or Flutter, because this will give you a smoother learning curve, so you can just start with very little knowledge and like just build on top of that. But down the line, I would always suggest that like whatever frameworks you're choosing or whatever, maybe for some time you should switch to native Android, and if possible iOS development, and get a taste of the thing. Because no matter what framework you are using, you will always run into some sort of problems which will require native knowledge to solve them. So that is one thing. So now the choice is yours, that if you want native or Flutter or React Native. But I think like with whatever you start, sometimes maybe for 1 or 2 months, maybe 1 or 2 projects, you should dive into native. Okay. Okay. Then this is another thing, what to know before starting app development. So like what to know while doing app development, that is a different question. But before you start, how do you know if you're ready? So the answer is you might not be ready, but that is not a big thing. all you need to do is you need to figure out a few things. Step one is learn to Google. I know this sounds like a stupid thing to say, and I always repeat this in every opportunity I get. So, but this is a really, really genuine thing, and I really want everyone to really learn how to Google, because in this world, this is your only friend, right? So now the question is, some of you might be thinking, yeah, I already know how to Google. I just go to google.com and paste whatever I want, and it will give me some sort of suggestions. But that is not what I'm asking about. So what I'm really trying to say is that you need to learn the exact ways in which you can Google, or like to how to get the best out of Google. So the one common mistake that everyone makes is that they will ask questions to Google. They will say how to do this, how to do that, and these sort of things. But I think a better approach would be that instead of asking, you type what are the things you expect to see from the result, right? So you can say that if you want to center align a button or a text in a field in a page, so you can just have this option, how can I center the text in a page, and in Android you can just search like that. Yeah, this will give you some sort of answers, that is true. But just imagine that what are you expecting from the page or the web page where you have the answer. It will mostly be written like center uh, a text in a page, right? So instead of writing how to and putting a question mark, just try to type in that keywords, because Google is not grammar Nazi. It doesn't require you to use the proper sentences. Just stick to keywords. I think it will always give you a better results. At least that is what I got. And also maybe when you are doing development, you will run into some issues, maybe syntax errors, sometimes compilation errors, sometimes what to say, runtime errors as well. So you need to figure out how to go into the logs and just dig in and get the exact error message, so that you can copy paste it into Google, because that is one crucial step. If you don't know what to copy, and like if you start crying whenever you have an error, then you're not going to move forward, right? Okay. So second important thing, no matter what you are trying to learn, it doesn't only correspond to app development as well, but any sort of development, that is you should learn to Git. So I hope that most of you know about Git, but in case you don't, Git is a sort of version control. So what do I mean by version control? Is that like um, so you have this app, you have this button, and maybe you make this button red and all sort of things, and you just make your app, deploy it on Play Store, and you're happy for some days. But after that, you suddenly feel like, yeah, this is not enough. I need more. So you just go back to your app, you make some more changes, and then you just deploy it, right? That's cool. So you just keep on going, like changing the code and just building it and building it, building it. At once, what happens is that it is certain that you will fall into some issues, and like you have like messed up the code long back and you haven't figured it out. So and then what happens is that you don't have any option but to like rewrite the whole thing again. So Git is like checkpoints. If you have those games where like most probably in racing games, that if you have these checkpoints and if you pass those checkpoints, so if you die somewhere after that, so you can just restart it from there. So Git is somewhat like that for your code. So maybe after some certain milestones, if you just put these checkpoints over there, so in any case you cause a serious disaster, you can just go back and like resume from there. I think that is a very helpful thing. Maybe you might not realize it now, but like 1 2 years down the line, when you're seriously coding with lots of files and this stuff, and maybe when you are working in a team especially, then you will realize that Git is a very very big like helping utility thing. So anyway, Git is not mandatory for Android app development, but I would really recommend that you just start with the basics of Git, if not anything fancy, but you should at least know something. Okay, so now the question is how to get started with app development, right? So it's pretty simple. first step is download Android Studio. Now, you might be asking that if I want to build with React Native, do I need Android Studio? Technically, you don't, but I would recommend that you do. And if you're building in Native or Flutter, then of course Android Studio is a must. Okay. Now, why is this step crucial and why it is written in bold? That is because this also brings us to the point that we have some other considerations to make. The first thing is Android Studio takes up a lot of resources, right? It itself is around 1.5 GBs, and then you need to download some more stuff. So first thing is you need to ensure that you have almost you have unlimited internet, you have good internet, and also like that is the first requirement. And even if not unlimited, at least you need to have good internet for some time. And but it is always better that you have a proper internet connection. And second thing is that your hardware needs to be like powerful enough, because Android Studio takes up quite a lot of RAM and also processing power. So like at least 4 GB of RAM is necessary, but that is not the what to say the recommended one. In fact, 8 GB is also not recommended. I use 16 GB of RAM and it still feels cluttered sometimes. So even this machine causes some issues when I'm running Android Studio and emulator side by side. So you can see that this is a serious like power hungry thing. So that is one thing. So Android Studio takes up a lot of resources and it might heat up. So first, like before starting Android Studio, always make sure that your hardware is like powerful enough. So like yeah, and if you want to run the like if you want to test your apps inside your computer as well, then of course you need to make sure that it is even more powerful, because emulators take up a lot of RAM too. Okay, now step 2 is check out tutorials from YouTube. I think this is also a very dumb way to like this is also a very dumb suggestion, you would say. Now the point is people underestimate YouTube for a lot of reasons. I don't know why, and sometimes people just think that YouTube is only for wasting time, but no, I personally believe that YouTube has a lot of good content, and sometimes some YouTube tutorials are better than the premium ones. So, and I personally learned like personally speaking, I learned everything from YouTube. I did not go through courses and all. So all of my experiences and all of the things that I learned was from YouTube and some Medium articles. So thanks YouTube for that. Anyway, so I think maybe sometimes what happens is when you are starting out, you are not quite confident that this is something you want to commit to. So maybe premium courses might not be the first thing you might want to like invest in. So that is the time you go to YouTube and get your hands dirty. And after you go to YouTube and maybe try to find out some videos which has more than some million likes, so you feel confident about following them. So you fire up your Android Studio and write the codes, and then when you hit the run button, and then it falls, it just crashes. So now step 3 is to cry. Anyway, I think there is a solution for this one as well. The solution is the premium courses, or if not premium courses, at least courses for Android. So I might have not followed courses anywhere down the line, but I have seen other people, and I have also seen the contents of some of the courses in Udacity, and I think they're absolutely awesome. And like they have like primarily, I would like to mention about the Firebase course they have. So it is very like what to say neatly designed to like make you acquainted with most of the basic features of Firebase and also about Android app development. So if you feel like I want to invest some time and I'm serious about Android development, and I'd really ask you to go and check out Udacity. I wish this was sponsored by them, but unfortunately it's not. Anyway, then there is Google Code Labs. So this is also another thing. So about Code Labs, one thing you need to make sure they are primarily focused toward certain aspects of development and not the generic one. So in Udacity, you will get courses which will teach you how to go over the whole thing and maybe like the basics of Android development and all. But in Code Labs, you would mostly get the hands-on stuff about certain features, maybe with augmented reality or this sort of like small features. So this is also a very interactive way to learn coding. I think you should check it out as well. And now, so today we were supposed to focus on native app development. Now the question you might ask is that which language to start with, Java versus Kotlin. So this is also a big dilemma, real life dilemma that you need to face while choosing a language. So I'll just give you the points because I'm not sure that like there is a right answer to this. So Java is an established player in the industry. So if you know Java, it makes you part of a elite group of programmers. At least Java programmers think they're elite. So the point is that Java is also used in many other places. So not just Android. You can build full-fledged backends with Java in Spring. You can make industry-grade enterprise softwares with Java, which power the industries maybe in different places, ERP systems and stuff. And also for big data, you have Java. So Java is quite powerful. And in fact, most of the backend codes in Amazon and Google are written in Java. So that is one thing. And since this is a very, very old language, it is quite matured and it has a lot of support and tutorials available everywhere. And compared to that, Kotlin is quite new. Kotlin was an experimental language and which came to limelight after Android. Like Google decided to ditch Java from their Android ecosystem and like make friendship with Kotlin. So even though Kotlin uses JVM to run, so like if you know about Java and its peculiar behavior, so you know what JVM is. Otherwise, don't need to bother. So like why Google chose Kotlin is a different issue, but the point is, since it is now chosen as the official language for Android development, so what will happen is years down the line, all the new codes or all the new tutorials or everything that come out from Android, their official channel, everything will be in Kotlin. Okay, and like the newer programmers who are learning, maybe they will like start using Kotlin in like instead of Java. So Kotlin is the future, that is for sure, and at least with Android, Java isn't. So, but the cons, the very serious con with Kotlin is that since it's new, there are not a lot, there isn't a lot of tutorials or maybe support from the community yet. But it is quite stable and also quite similar to Java. So, if you have some knowledge about Java, switching to Kotlin is not that difficult, right? And also, the point is, even if you invest or maybe start learning Android with Java, switching to Kotlin is not really difficult because the functions and the libraries are almost similar. Only the syntax is a little bit different, and even the syntax is quite friendlier than Java, so it won't be a problem to switch later on. So if you're not confident with your programming abilities, maybe, or if you're just this is your first framework you are starting with, then I think I would recommend you Java, because then if you're stuck, you can get a lot of community support. But if you are quite experienced and you have confidence in your skills, then you might try to venture out with Kotlin as well. The choice is totally yours. Okay, so now the next steps are that maybe like choose a language, which I'll assume that you have done, and then you will have to learn the OP concepts. So this is one thing I actually warned earlier as well. You have to learn a little bit about object-oriented programming, because that is like used like everywhere in your Android ecosystem. So all the classes and interfaces and these that and functions, these private public packages, these that blah blah blah. So if you are not familiar with OP concepts, at least the basic ones, it is going to be quite difficult for you. So that is one thing. And then you can follow Android documentation, even though that is like that is the safest place to go, but not always the friendliest way to go. But anyhow, you need to go on. And then as your requirements arise, you have to learn about different libraries like Glide or Volley. So these have different specific purposes. And when you are stuck in something, that is when is the right time you should jump. and like learn some new libraries and stuff. Okay, so this is just a friendly list of things you can build as your starting project, so that this might be a little bit useful and something you can even show off to your friends, and doesn't take much hard work as well. So I think this year COVID-19 tracker was a very big hit among newbie programmers. Almost 1 in 5 Android developers I know have created a COVID tracker this year. If not in Android, then in web, in some way or the other. But like, I think we have more COVID tracking apps than COVID patients in India right now. But anyway, if you want to learn, I think this is a very good thing, and also somehow practical thing to make. And this also can make you use some of the libraries and APIs and front end back end stuff. So like this will be quite a nice experience. And then you can build attendance, these sort of things, and or maybe just dive into making some clones of established players like WhatsApp or Instagram or whatever. So whatever you want. Anyway, so do you have any questions before I start with some more boring content? Okay, I'll just see because nobody speaks. Anyone? Hello. Cool. Nobody has any questions. Good. So now the next and the hopefully the last phase is demystifying Android Studio.
Acha, excuse
So
me.
yeah.
Actually,
Mhm.
Abhishek Baral has a question. He just typed it right now.
Mhm.
He's asking that are all the libraries necessary and how much? That's what he asked.
Um, no. This is not technically a right question, but also like no, all the libraries are not necessary. And I also don't understand, like I don't know what you mean by all the libraries, but yeah, all the libraries are not necessary because I don't know that if it is even feasible to learn all the libraries on all the things that is required. But yeah, the point is, um, I think there is this what to say. I follow this strategy always for learning something new. Is that like we are taught from our school days that first step to learn something is having a syllabus. So it will always tell you that these are the things that you need to learn, and this is the 100% of it. So and in India at least, you are always taught that to get 100%, this is the thing you need to learn. But in real world that doesn't happen, because in real world there isn't a syllabus, right? So I think somewhere you might feel that anxious thing that yeah, I need to know from beforehand that what is the 100% of it, and where is the syllabus, and like how much to study so that I quote unquote pass this taste of Android development. But in reality nothing like that exists. So the strategy you used in school or maybe in college will not apply here. So you have to find out something else. So what I do is I take a very small target. Maybe my first target is to like set up the Android Studio and just run a simple hello world text in my screen. So this is my target, and I will allot time to it. I will just try to download software and get everything running. So this is my small, you can say this is my unit test. This is my semester exam. So I have passed one semester, and then my target would be to build something, maybe 3 pages with 3 colors buttons, and maybe like clicking on those it will say my name, or it will like maybe like randomly shuffle between memes and stuff. So the point is, don't go by the fact that how many stuff are out there. Rather try to set your own goals and like stick to them. Maybe like once you reach a milestone, then decide the next one and move forward to it. Otherwise like if you start looking into how diverse this Android development is, you might get lost. Because like even after like this 3 to 4 years of app development, I can say that I know not more than 30% of any framework. So like you see that because every day there will be something new that comes up. So it is not always possible that you can just what to say keep up with 100% of it. But you have to have this solid core so that like even if you need to still learn something, so you can just quickly like associate it with your core and just learn it. So of course you don't need to learn all the libraries. I don't know from where you will get all the libraries, but no, just stick to whatever you need, and that's all. Okay, so if you ever start your Android Studio and start building something, this is the first thing you will feel. So Android Studio is quite not only resource consuming, but it also makes your machine very, very hot. So I think this will be a very great thing for winters. So like maybe even though nobody asked me, I think the best time to learn Android development is winter, because like you can save your like the budget for electricity budget for your heater as well. But apart from that, be one, this is not virus or anything. If you are using Windows, then this is a very common thing that is going to happen. Like this happens with my Mac also, and also my Linux machine as well. So like it's no big deal. Just used to the heat. Get used to it. Okay. Now the same like now I think
Isra,
I should, yeah.
we have a question from Jeet Nath. He's asking
Mhm.
that if app development is completely different from web development or they're just similar.
Yeah, so with respect to what? Like different I mean, yeah, app development happen like app development according to definition is like designing a software for your mobile devices, and web development is by definition designing a web page for that runs on your browser. So I think that is the distinction. Ki one runs on browser, another runs on your phone, right? So mm, how do I better explain it? So
Will it be easy if someone from web dev background goes for
yeah,
app development?
I'll give you a small analogy. So the point is, so let's say we are talking about running, not running an app, I mean running in the field. So this is our target. So there are two ways to do this, or two ways to what to say, like achieve this. One is you can just like head on and just start running on barefoot. So that is one way. So the pros about this is that you will have full control over how you run. If you want to get faster, you can just get faster. If you want to change direction, if you want to stop, then you can stop. But the other way is that you can just ride on a horse and just start. So in this case, what happens is that the most of the running is done by the horse. So you are just sitting on top of it. So you don't really have much control. Maybe if you're experienced enough and if your horse allows you to control it, then it's fine. But otherwise, if it just rebels against you, then it will take you to a different country altogether and you cannot stop it. So I think for mobile devices, running apps and web pages are something similar. So apps run on their own, like on apps run bare feet. So they just take the ground of this operating system and run on their own. So you have full control over what you want to do. But in case of web apps, they run on top of browsers. So you see, browser is the horse. So it has a limited number of features that like limited number of controls that it gives you. Apart from that, it is on its own. So you have to be rely on it for like taking you to the right direction. So that is the big difference between Android app development and web development. And I think the next part of your question is that like, will it be easier for them to switch from here to here? No, in theory, it won't, because you will be writing web apps with HTML, CSS, and if you come to app development, you will be writing with Java, XML, and stuff. But the basic idea of development will actually help, but not necessary. But like that doesn't mean that you will first go and learn web development and then come back. You can always start with this one first. I started with Android, I did not have idea about web pages until I was in third year. So the point is, it is not necessary. But yeah, if you have any sort of development experience, it will always help, because you see, whatever is the framework, whatever is the thing you are making, so they all have same thing in common. They have a lot of files, they have a starting point, they have a runtime, they have a way they learn it, to execute it. So you see, for like making code chef programs and like lead code programs, you don't have to handle all those. You just write everything all at once, the very crude logic, just convert it into some codes commands. But in case of any sort of development, you will have to have a more sophisticated knowledge about the project structure and stuff. So yeah, it will help you a little bit. But with that being said, you really don't need to go back and maybe learn web development and come back. You can just start it from here. Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I
Dev.
think.
We have one last question. I think it's from Aryan Burnwell only. He's
Mhm.
asking that does Android Studio run better in Linux or Mac? He was asking on which OS does it run the best? And basically, yeah.
Okay, so this is a question. Yeah, I think I know the answer for in which OS it runs the worst. That is Windows. So Windows itself is quite laggy and resource consuming. Android Studio is also quite resource consuming. So like I think this is something you need to avoid, Windows. So if you are what to say, if you are into Android app development, I think the first thing you should do is maybe switch to Linux if possible, because in Android, so in Windows, you will. I think, and if you have a machine that is quite heavy, maybe 16 gigs of RAM and i7 or something, then it's fine. Otherwise, I think Linux is the best option, because I don't think many of us has like a very premium machine. So I think Linux would do the job, because like when I used Linux, I had 8 gigs of RAM and it was quite like what is smooth. I used Android Studio and then Chrome, and then also sometimes used the emulator all at once, and it was still operational somehow. It did not just melt down. So that is the thing. And what about Mac OS? I would not comment much about the Mac OS, because this looks quite fancy, but I'm not really very fond of this machine anyway. But yeah, this is quite fast. So Android Studio and building and all those stuffs, that happens quite fast. But yeah, this is quite faster than Linux as well. So the question is, what OS? Yeah, Mac is, I think, the best OS for running these sort of things. But the point is, like, with Mac OS, you also need a Mac hardware. So that is a deadlock, I think. That is a showstopper. So if you can find a Mac machine, then I think that is the best option. Go. Right? So any questions? Uh, right. Yeah, this is a very, very good question. So Abhishek says that everything gets updated so quickly in Android dev. Yeah, this is a very big challenge. So when I started doing Android development, whatever things I learned, the type of like they use this design pattern and everything, which is quite outdated by now. So I have some projects in my machine which doesn't even run right now on the newer versions, because some of the codes are, some of the libraries or SDKs have been deprecated. So yeah, this is a very, very changing field. So how to keep updated? I think the best way to be updated about Android development is to be in touch with the real things. So if you are continuously making apps and you are like well into this ecosystem, then somehow or the other you will always get the updates about the new things that come. Like yeah, like say at once when I started, there was no such thing as material design. So after 1 year, this thing came out called material design, and all the Google apps have adapted to it. So the apps look better and stuff. So what me and my friend did was, we took the Macout syllabus app and just we redesigned it according to the new standards. So even though this is not a very successful app or this is very useful or something, but we did this for one purpose. The main thing was to learn how material design works. So I think the best way to deal with the new things is that like you stick to development, because if you like get out of this for even for 3 to 5 months, you will like forget half of the thing. So it's something like swimming. So like if you know how to swim, it is easier to just dive into a pool of water and swim around. But if you are not like if you haven't dived into water for about 2 years, it will take some time to come back. So what is the best way to keep your swimming skills ready? I think the answer is to regularly dive into water, right? So same for Android development as well. And I think with Google and other things right now, what I personally think is that they always monitor what you are searching on Google search, right? So after a certain time, they will profile you as a wannabe Android developer. And at least I see all the suggestions related to new Google articles, maybe Android articles on my feed in Google News and that other app. So I think that is one great way to keep up with new things, because even if I'm not actively searching for something, Google will always recommend me something related to Android development and other things that I do and search. So I think that is a one trick. That is one trick you can use. Apart from that, you can always subscribe to some people on YouTube or some Medium channels or some maybe dev.to channels who post regularly about Androids, and someone or other will always update you about this, right? So that is one way. Okay, so let's get back to now. If you open Android, I think this is quite intimidating, because for a beginner, so many lot of things can actually be a little bit confusing. Because if you're coming from web development or competitive programming, you are always used to having one single file or maximum two files. But here you have a like a forest, a jungle full of files of different kinds, of which many have these weird extensions. So I think this is very confusing for newbies to know where to start and what files are important and which to learn. Because someone already said that, do I need to know everything at once? So no. And the second question is, if I don't know everything, then how do I know which file is important, right? So I'll just tell you a little bit about this Android Studio as a whole, which you will always listen here and there. So I might just give you a small introduction. So first thing is Gradle, because this is the thing you always have to deal with if you're in Android Studio, because every time you run Android Studio, it will start building something. So there is this thing called Gradle build. So what is this exactly? So you see, like you have seen here that there are a lot of files. Okay, so manifest files, Java files, and blah, and XML, these sort of things. So the question is, when you are downloading from Play Store, or maybe like a few years back when you used to send the apps via Bluetooth to your friend, so what did you send to them? You did not, of course, send the Java files or the manifest files. So you used to send them only one thing, that is the APK file, right? So I think so the purpose of Gradle is to take all these files and then convert them into one single thing called like APK. It's not exactly that, not that like what to say. It's not straightforward like that. But Gradle is a building tool. So what it does is it takes your source codes and it builds into runnable stuff which runs on a platform. So Gradle is a bundling mechanism that Android uses. Previously it used Maven. Now it uses Gradle. So what Gradle does is it um, takes care of your dependencies. For example, I'll just give you an example. Let's say you are making an app, and your app uses some codes or maybe some buttons, colorful buttons that somebody else has designed, and it is available in an online repository. So what do you do is that instead of copying the code yourself, you just write it here. That yeah, this is the repository from where I want to import the library and use it for my um, app. So what Gradle does is it automatically like downloads these things and stores them locally, And this is one of the features of Gradle, that you don't have to take care of the codes itself. So even the versioning is taken care of by. So if there are multiple versions, you can just assign that which version you want. And like when you build the app, it will always fetch from the repository and just put it in the right place, so that you don't have to worry about this. So it will just get all of this together and put it in a like in a single bundle and just hand it over to you. So that is what Gradle does. The next thing is, I think, the next thing is emulator. Okay, so this is one more thing that people actually ask me in like sometimes, that like if I am writing Android apps, then is it better to connect my phone, or should I use an emulator that is built in into this Android Studio? So the once again, there is no right answer to this, but the point is, emulators are quite heavy. So if your machine can handle an emulator and a studio side by side, which you might want to experiment once, so that would be fine. Then you don't have to have the dependency of an external hardware. Don't need to carry and just plug it in. But if it is not going to support, or it is going to lag and just cry at times, so don't use an emulator. Try to use a real smartphone. And some people also believe that using a real smartphone for developing might destroy the phone. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't affect the phone as well, because like it's very simple thing for your smartphone. So don't worry that if you build and crash your apps in your phone, it is going to destroy it. No, it is not. So I think for everyone, it is always better to use real phones, right? So, but in case you are not having your real phone and you want to make your PC even more hot, then of course emulator is the way to go. Okay.
That's right.
Third thing is manifest file. This is also one thing that you need to be aware of.
Hmm?
So manifest files is this one, and it's like it has a very small gist about what your app is and what are its credentials. So you see, every app has this unique identifier, something like
Hmm?
your social security number or other card number. So it has to be unique all over the world. And it also, your app also has a name, also has an icon which is shown in launcher, and these sort of things. And maybe your app uses some permissions like internet or camera on this or that. And lastly, it also has some sort of activities. Activities are nothing but pages. So if you have 5 pages in your app, then there are 5 activities. So this file is something that holds the gist of all of them, so that when your app is loading, the system knows what to expect from this app. So when you're installing from Play Store, previously Play Store used to tell you that beware, this app uses these permissions. So if you remember correctly, that you would say that this requires access to your storage, camera, Bluetooth, blah blah blah. So in those cases, it always used to read from this file, and it will show you during installation. Right now, it doesn't show anymore. It has a different strategy. But if you can relate to that, then you will know that why
No.
this file is important. And this is the identifier that is like used everywhere to identify your app and stuff. So anyway, so this is the manifest file, and like if you dive into details, then I think you will know a lot more by yourself and other things that you can do with this. So I
No.
think I have spoken enough already. It's already 8:49, right? So I'm way over my timeline. Okay, so I think I'll leave up to here, because I think since it was not a hands-on
That's a
session, so I
noted
don't
about.
think I need to go and like start a project and show you how to run it. But it would have been fun. But I think the time is limiting and everyone is sleepy right now. So I think I'll conclude my session here. And so these are places where you can find me. I don't know why you do want to even find me, but in case you want, so these are the places
প্রবলেমটা
where
আমার
you
না
can
নটা
find me.
একদম ঠিক টাইম
So
মানে
do you have any more
তারপরে ওর
questions?
জীবনে লাইফ সিরিয়াস প্রবলেম আছে
Anyone?
আমি আমার
So
টাইম
okay,
মতনই যাব
cool. Intent filter. Intent filters are simple things. So sometimes what happens is that some activity requires special permissions. Like maybe one
আমার
intent filter
দরজাটা একটু
is
বন্ধ করো
like saying that this is the main activity. So if your operating system starts an application. So there has to be one page which starts initially. So that is decided by the intent filter. So if you put the intent filter as main launcher activity, so what happens is whenever you start the app, it will start this one. Like see, this says that this is the intent filter put inside this activity, right? So this is my main activity. So whenever I start my application, this is the page that will start. So this is an intent filter. So there are other sort of intent filters as well, like if you are using some URL deep linking, and then you want to like route it to some pages and all, then you can use intent filter for those pages. But those things are quite like not very basic or rudimentary. You will always know when you get there, right? Okay. So okay, what else? Okay, about YouTube channels. The problem is that the YouTube channels I followed for learning Android are also deprecated, as you can see. So like they are also old, and like they probably don't make any more new videos. So that is one big concern. I am not sharing any resources directly. Like the Eurocity courses and stuff, they keep updating, but the YouTube videos, people once the first time is interesting. You are making videos, people are liking, they're commenting, but after that it becomes boring. So many channels that I used to follow have stopped making new beginner videos for Android. So I don't know. I have to search. I think most probably if you have peers who are currently into Android development or starting from fresh, they can actually recommend you better channels than I can at the moment. So this is why I skipped this part. Okay. So this means if the user gives permission, then creator. Um, mm, if the user gives permission, then the creator of the app can remotely access them. No, these sort of things are not quite possible in Android right now. Maybe like yeah, so Android has this like with newer versions of Android, the security is getting more and more stern, and so these sort of things, these fishy things, you cannot do with Android anymore, like accessing them, maybe recording their screen or capturing their camera behind the back. So these sort of things are very difficult right now, so you cannot do them. But maybe yeah, so if you have a rooted phone where these securities doesn't apply, you might can do that. Yeah, and SMS and all can be easily captured. Yeah, this is one thing people always think. Yeah, SMSs can be easily captured. But one fun thing is that right now the latest version of Android, if you write here that I need access to all their SMSs and stuff, and you submit this app to Play Store, then they are not going to accept it until unless you are a SMS provider app. So if you are somewhat like Messenger or some messaging app, like where you can share memes or stuff. So until unless you are a messaging app, they will not allow you to access the messages. So that is one thing. So yeah, this was a security flaw for quite a long time, but now they have fixed it finally. How to start making apps that work on root access, like charge, changing CPU clock governor. I have no idea. These are always things. So I skipped that semester. Anyway, so how to start making apps that work on root access? The point is, apps don't have root access. Apps can either access the root or it can, depending on whether your system provides the access or not. So if you have a rooted phone, it's just a matter of few OS library calls, and you can get access to whatever thing you want. But for that, you have to root your phone, and like that means that you are just voiding all the contract and all the warranty stuff. I don't know if you want to go with them. Yeah, then that is the way. There is no magic hacking tool. Everything can be done from Android Studio. Yeah, so even literally everything that goes via notification. Okay, hot hold of a device for some time, a service can be put it and done. User will never even know. Yeah, so you can put the service. So now that has kind of what to say. Yeah, there are some limitations. Of course, you can get hold of device, you can install some fishy software and just leave it there. But the point is, like I said, that that fishy software cannot always access everything. So like it has now limitations to key logging and also capturing the screen, also audio, and maybe the camera contents as well. So I don't know what you can use with that fishy service, but yeah, some things are there that can be done, of course. But the Google Play Protect will sometimes scan and warn you that this is something that is going on, because this is also a fun thing. Google has recently launched this Play Protect service. So I showed you this thing right here. This package has an ID. So every app has to have this unique ID, otherwise it's not going to run. So Google knows which ID, which apps are um, uploaded to their Play Store. So if your phone has some app which is not uploaded to Play Store, and it uses some background services or something, it will always warn you. So in that case, the pawn service is going to fail after some time. Yeah, that is because maybe your phone is your app is in your own phone. So if you're trying to sneak on your own personality, then Google doesn't care. Anyway, but I don't know if you are trying to install it in somebody else's phone. Google might have an issue, or otherwise maybe I don't know what phone they're using. But this is the new feature that is still rolling out, and maybe I might be the one who has the thing because I have stock Android. Maybe they haven't rolled out this entirely, or maybe the security isn't strong enough. But not to worry, this will actually come maybe in a year or two. Yeah, so that's it. I think I shouldn't hold you people for long. Many people have already left the call midway. Wise people. Anyway, um, so anything else you want to ask me? Yeah, people already started saying thanks. That means good night. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so thank you, Krishnada, for this brilliant session. It was extremely informative. Also, like it was humorous. Like we liked the presentation a lot. Okay, and thank you so much for this presentation. Okay.
Thanks,
Okay.
thanks. And also, most of the presentation was done by Aryan, so thanks to him as well. And also, thank you guys and thank you DCKGC, because I was actually, honestly, I had this dream of taking this session for long, but I did not know where to get the channel. So, like, you guys provided me the channel, so that's also a good thing. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. So I'm stopping the live right now. Okay, and yeah.
yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys. Stay safe, everyone. Don't go out. There is still COVID. Okay.
Okay. So as of the statistics showed by Facebook Live, like the video reached about 454 people, and considering the total amount of audience, like here we had about 31, and from there
Okay,
we had
so
about 15
a
and
very good
16 people
evening to
more.
one and all present over here.